through swift running creek. And this thing crossed. I heard it slosh, 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 slosh. And eventually, I see two critters come out of the woods behind my truck. So I knew at that point he was joined by one. I just didn't know which one was the one that was there originally and which one was the one that crossed the creek, because they were two different sizes. I've had people talk to me about my encounter, and we think it was probably the little one that was in the park, because it's just his behavior, very childlike. You know, meandering through the park, dinging on the post. I imagine the big boy over there across the creek was probably thinking, well, quit hitting them posts or whatever. But, you know, so here's this little one going through the park, like a kid maybe. And so eventually, where I saw the movement behind my truck, before they stepped out, for the first time that night, I had not heard any owls call. And then all of a sudden, I hear, whoo! And it's loud, right behind my truck. He continued to do that call about every 5 seconds for like 3 minutes. So there's like 17 owl calls within 3 minutes, and they were loud, and they were right behind my truck. We surmise that they imitate other animals, and don't know why. So many speculations, so many questions. I'm going to tell you what happened that night. Go with it, if you will. I'm just going to tell you what happened, and we'll just try to figure it out, as we learn more about them. But do you have that audio of the owl calls? This is I recorded that night. I had a recorder going, and this is those owl calls from that night. You can even hear the town far away. You can hear cars. Okay. I thought we had a series of 5 or 6 of them, but yeah, about every 6, 7, 8 seconds, he would do it again and again and again. I don't think that he was completely at the back of my truck at the time. I think he was closer to the creek when he started hooting and was moving closer, because to me, sitting in the truck, it got louder each time. So it was something on the move that was doing it. Or maybe he was standing in one spot and just getting louder each time. I don't know. So we had people analyze the audio recordings and look into a spectrogram or audiogram or whatever, and you could see that whatever it was either getting louder each time or it was moving towards me each time. But at some point, it was the last one, and that was it. I can only assume that they were just trying to see if they could get some reaction out of the campsite. If somebody would move around in the campsite, they would be loud enough. If somebody would move in the campsite, then they'd know that there was somebody in the campsite. I didn't give up my position. I didn't move. I'm just tucked down in my front seat of my truck, listening and trying to watch. And that's when they come out. I saw their exit from the woods. It was right in my side mirror. I was watching them down the side of the truck. They immediately came out of the woods and moved to the back corner of my truck. My tent would have been in a position about right over there. So they immediately moved in a strategic position that put the truck between them and the tent, even though there was a table full of food sitting right there. They never once went to that table full of food. They just put themselves in a position, not knowing I'm seeing his full body, and I saw him come out of the woods. And that's when it got sticky for me. He'd come out swinging his arms like this, and the little one was right at his flank. As a matter of fact, they were moving at a pretty good clip from the wood line to the back of my truck, and they were bumping into each other to get behind the truck right here. When they got here, the big one grabbed my truck racks across the beam and the side post and moved around to the side of my truck. And at that moment, I thought he was coming down the driver's side and my doors weren't locked. Man, I'm a trained firefighter. I've been in fire where other people were running out, and I've learned to calm myself down and pay attention to details, and for arson investigation and things like that. I have never had the terror that I have had the moment that this thing, because he, next to my truck racks, his head was this much taller than my truck racks. And the next day I measured, since I saw him right by my truck racks, I said, that's my size reference. I'm gonna measure from the ground to the top of my racks are 7 foot. He was this much taller than a 7-foot lab rat. Massive, gorilla. I saw the muscles under his arm. I saw the moonlight coming through the hair on his shoulders. I saw him wrap his hands around the post of my racks, and I was about to have a heart attack. I immediately let my blankets, I didn't even close them, I just let them fall because I wanted him to think it was all natural. And I just rolled over into the shadow of my A-post, and I was like, please don't come up here. I mean, I was really panicked, and that, needless to say, it's changed my life. He immediately, thankfully, he moved around, he grabbed the back corner and he looked like he was coming down, and I immediately sealed up. But it wasn't just a second later, I knew exactly where he was. And you're going to say, well, that's terrifying too, but it actually brought me a little relief because I knew where he was. He climbed up on the back of my truck. The back of my truck immediately squatted like you wouldn't believe. It was a brand new 2004 crew cab diesel truck, heavy duty, and that back end squatted like you wouldn't believe when this thing climbed up on there. And he started rifling through the stuff in the back of my truck. I never saw the little one again. When they approached and the little one was right here, he was in a position to be kind of behind the tailgate when they got to that corner, so I never saw the little one again. But I wasn't looking anymore once I rolled off into the shadows. I wasn't going to move. I was done because when he was on my truck and I heard my Tupperware containers and stuff being shuffled around in the back of my truck, I knew where he was, as scary as that was, but I didn't know he was on the bumper. I didn't know he was on the bumper until the next day. I actually thought he would climb into the bed of my truck. And I'm thinking, oh, if he climbs on my cab, there's no way this cab is going to handle any of that. And I actually put my hand on the keys and I was like, just don't come any further. I'm going to have to start up. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have to start up and get out here while he's in the back of my truck. Yeah, I know, my thoughts were getting crazy at that time. But in all reality, the next day I saw the smudge marks on my bumper, which showed that he was only standing on my bumper. And the way my racks are set up, and as tall as he was, I am sure that standing on my bumper, it was very easy for him to just reach over the racks. His arm span had to have been 8 foot to be able to just rummage through the stuff in the back of my truck. I had a generator back there that turned it completely over. So you know what, a raccoon, let's just leave that right now, what a raccoon. And I had 2 propane tanks, little green propane tanks in the right corner of my truck. Now, at the time this happened, I did not know it was the propane tanks that they took. But while he was rummaging through the back of my truck, he accidentally clanked the 2 little green tanks together, and I heard the sound. It went clink, and all movement stopped, except him playing with those propane tanks. He was clinking them together. He was going clink, 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 clink. And I can just imagine him looking at the little one saying, hey. So they eventually left, and I hear in the distance, clink. At the time I heard it while I was in my truck, I'm thinking, well, he's got that stick and he's back to hitting the post that I'd heard on his approach. So throughout this whole process, I'm thinking, hey, you're still in the park, he's hitting the post somewhere else, they could come back. So I still never revealed my position. I stayed there saying, please come back, please come back. You didn't get to the front of my truck where I was going to hit my headlights, I'm just going to wait because they got to come back. So I ended up waiting until morning and they didn't come back, and by then I really had to use the bathroom. And I was not going to get out of the truck when it was dark. So I eventually get out, and as soon as it's light, man, I'm looking for hairs that are stuck in my racks. I'm climbing up and looking at the top of my racks. I'm looking for fingerprints, and I see the smudge marks on my bumper, which shows that dirty feet had stepped up onto my bumper. Really wide spacings, so I knew that's where he'd climbed. And I'm thinking, okay, so he wasn't in the bed of my truck, he was just on the bumper. And so you start to put the picture together when you see the evidence later, but what was happening in my mind was just terrifying. But needless to say, these animals are real. They are there. They are at least there. I can't tell you they're everywhere else. I can tell you they've been in a lot of places that I've researched, but they are absolutely in that park. And I have been there many, many times. They don't come every time. Sometimes you'll hear those owl calls again. Sometimes you'll have activity in the park. Lots of times you'll go there and there's a lot of people there. I mean, I've been there so many times, and it's 8 hours from my house, so it's not a place I can go to every weekend. And that's what people ask me. They're like, well, if I saw a Bigfoot there, I'd go there every weekend. That's where I'd be every time. And and I tried that. It got really expensive, traveling 8 hours with gas prices and a big old diesel truck.